tackling an insurgency. Fresh attacks in Nigeria have been linked to Boko Haram. We have the latest. Death at a wedding in North Africa. Gunmen target celebration in a Cairo Coptic church.
The reason why they are calling him Woman Village is there is one person that starts living in this place.
And Understanding Nigeria will be exploring the opportunities and challenges in northern Nigeria in a brand new special series. Hello there, welcome to Africa Live, CCTV's new program that brings you African and global news from all perspectives. I'm Ramanyang in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. Here's what we have lined up for the next 30 minutes. SADC Ministers of Transport will set up a new body to boost minimum standards of aviation safety in the region. And hanging on as well, we'll be looking at Egypt's coach and his chances of seeing the Egyptians through to the next World Cup qualifier. Let's start, however, in West Africa with news of yet another deadly attack by members of the extremist group Boko Haram. Gunmen dressed in military uniform killed 19 people on Sunday in northern Nigeria near the border with Cameroon. The Kalashnikov-wielding, motorcycle-riding gunmen blocked the highway near the town of Logomani, shooting and hacking motorists to death and thereafter burning 3 trucks. The leaders of a civilian vigilante group in the area told AFP news agency that the same gunmen had attacked the border town of Gamborungala near Logomani late on Friday. They were, however, repelled by both soldiers and local vigilantes. Now, a bit of background here. The Boko Haram militia has waged a deadly insurgency in northern Nigeria since 2009. In effect, they're seeking to create an Islamic state in the mainly Muslim north of a religiously diverse and highly populous country. It has been blamed for many violent attacks which have claimed the lives of nearly 2,000 people since 2011. Here are some of the key incidents that the group has been involved in the last 3 months. On the 24th of August, suspected Boko Haram members, who residents say were disguised as military officers, stormed Bama and cut the throats of 14 young vigilantes. Weeks later, on the 19th of September, again dressed in military uniform, the militants set up checkpoints outside the town of Benishek and shot dead those trying to flee. 87 people were killed in that incident alone. On the 29th of September, suspected Islamist gunmen then attacked a college in Gujiba in northeastern Nigeria, killing up to 50 students in that incident. Now, Nigeria's government is struggling to subdue an insurgency blamed on Boko Haram. Many experts claim that the Islamist group has survived and thrived thanks to deprivation in the north. Some in Nigeria argue that the north, quite literally, is a different country. Well, here's CCTV's Robert Giller. He's taking the highway that leads from the capital, Abuja, to the center of the Boko Haram insurgency. This is his first of his road trip reports.
Nigeria's capital, one of the brashest, fastest, newest cities in Africa. But Abuja is just the start of our journey. It's a drive of nearly 900 kilometers through 4 states, each with their own challenges and opportunities. And finally, to Maiduguri, the birthplace of Boko Haram. Our mission, to find the stories of ordinary Nigerians caught up in extraordinary times. We're just a few kilometers along the road and the influence of Abuja is waning.
You see how the congestion will be. It's not like Abuja.
Instead of vehicles piled up in traffic, more and more we see motorcycle taxis. Our first pull-in, a place called One Man Village.
The reason why they are calling him Woman Village is there is one person that starts living in this place.
Beyond One Man Village, it's farming country.
We just passed in Nasarawa State, we enter Kaduna State.
The roads are good, but the driving's a challenge, particularly if you want to overtake. And already, less than 150 kilometers from Abuja, the first evidence that we're moving into more dangerous territory. These roadblocks are becoming more or less permanent fixtures now. Travelers on this road provide a living for many who live alongside it. An African delicacy, roast maize, fruits of all kinds on sale by the roadside. After parting with some money, the locals pause for us. Innocent smiles reflecting the resilience of the people.
We've been driving now for just over an hour, and perhaps the most amazing thing is this could be anywhere in Africa. There's so much resemblance across so many countries.
But in the last hour of this leg of the journey, we're driving into a storm.
This rain means welcome to Jos.
Jos is the main city in Nigeria's Plateau state. It sits almost exactly on the divide between north and south. Where does the name Jos come from?
The different ethnic groups around here will tell you the different meanings. Some will tell you it's joked, some will tell you it's gouache, but all alluding to spring. Spring. It's related to water springing out of the ground. But of course, others would also like to see it in a religious way by saying that it is Jesus our Savior.
It is here we will spend our first night. Wabot Nagila, CCTV, Jos, Nigeria.
Now, over in North Africa, at least 3 people have been killed in Egypt after masked gunmen on motorcycles opened fire to a wedding party in a Coptic church in Cairo on Sunday night. Egypt's interim Prime Minister Hazem El-Biblawi has condemned this attack. He's pledged to do everything possible to bring the perpetrators to book.
What was meant to be a joyful wedding celebration turned into a bloody attack. Gunmen on motorcycles fired at the guests who were standing outside a Coptic Christian church in a Cairo suburb, killing 3 people, one of them an 8-year-old girl.
We had a meeting downstairs and we had a very loud sound, as if something was collapsing. Within seconds, one of our friends arrived and said, "Hurry up, there's gunfire in front of a church." We came running, hysterical, and when we arrived, I found a woman sitting in a chair, who had many bullet wounds and blood coming out from everywhere. It was a very difficult sight.
Ibrahim says the local Muslim and Christian community have lived harmoniously.
What happened is an insult to Egypt, and it's not directed only at the Coptic Christians. We are destroying our own country. Just imagine what people outside Egypt will think when they hear something like this has happened. We are an internationally known church. The Virgin Mary has appeared here.
Coptic Christians make up 10% of Egypt's 85 million people and have generally coexisted with majority Sunni Muslims for centuries despite bouts of sectarian tension. But the army's overthrow of elected Islamist President Mohamed Morsi on July 3rd has been followed by the worst attacks on churches and Christian properties in years. Maria Galang, CCTV.
10 minutes into the hour, let's take our first break. Here's what's coming up next. A tribute to killed migrants, remembering the Africans who perished in an ill-fated pursuit of a better life.
We follow the latest trends in global politics, economics, culture and sport, and how Africa fits into the global picture. You decide what's important.
We need a trade justice.
Africa's future will be determined by Africa.
For women's equal opportunity, for a better life.
We have to change something, and it's not the outsiders.
Talk Africa, a new voice for the world.
Welcome back. Members of the Ethiopian and Eritrean community gathered in Rome on Monday to hold their own vigil for those who drowned when a migrant boat sank on the 3rd of October. Now, the gathering had been organized for those unable to attend the official commemoration ceremony that will take place in Sicily later this afternoon. Over 350 people, most of them Eritreans, drowned on the shipwreck about a kilometer off the coast of the southern Italian island of Lampedusa. Italy is now closely working along with other EU member states to monitor the Mediterranean. So far, it has deployed an assault ship with an onboard hospital and long-range helicopters, 5 more naval vessels, several helicopters, and an aircraft equipped with night vision and radar, plus unmanned aerial vehicles based in Sicily.
The people have been great, but those who had responsibility for these things have not reacted properly. Lampedusa is a source of hope for these people, but becomes a grave for many. We just don't want this anymore. Proper checks and controls must be made and help given to those in need by those responsible.
Also, a memorial service for victims of the Lampedusa tragedy is set to be held, as you just mentioned earlier, on the Italian island of Sicily. At least 364 people drowned on a boat capsized off the coast of Lampedusa. Many have been buried in unknown vaults, despite the Italian Prime Minister Enrico Letta's promise to hold a state funeral for the dead. But as the initial shock from the tragedy fades, there's now quite a bit of concern that very little, if any, will change for the tens of thousands of migrants and asylum seekers who make the same perilous journey every year. CCTV's Kate Parkinson now reports.
The people of Lampedusa will never forget what happened. The island is littered with the debris of wrecked boats, or those that barely made it. And it is wood from these boats that a carpenter on the island is using to make crosses, connecting Italy's religion with the many migrants who arrive on its shores. The compassion here is at odds with Italy's harsh immigration laws, and Francesco says his crosses are a symbol of solidarity with the migrants, a message he hopes will travel outside the island.
When a person touches these pieces of wood that have come from suffering, because so many times only the boat reaches the land, but not the people. I mean, I don't know if their consciousness must be shaken, but this is the message. The cross must touch the people. I don't know, but I will try my best to make sure that someone who touches the pieces of wood can feel moved and say, I'm touching the suffering.
Francesco says migrants who arrive on the island, many of whom are Christians, are also moved by his crosses, understanding all too well the perils of the journey.
They're emotional in an incredible way, because they understand that they passed through the storm in that boat to arrive here, and many of them know that these boats do not arrive safely on the land. And this is a really touching thing, not only for me, but for them as well.
The deaths of hundreds of migrants in these waters earlier this month sent shockwaves around Europe, but nowhere was the grief felt more than here in Lampedusa, where much of the community feels great compassion and solidarity with the migrants who arrive on these shores in their thousands. Kate Parkinson, CCTV, Lampedusa in Italy.
Let's make a quick run now through other news from across the continent. Let's start in South Sudan, where rebels in that country's volatile state of Jonglei killed at least 41 people and wounded 46 others in a raid on 3 cattle camps on Sunday. Since breaking from Sudan in 2011, South Sudan has struggled to assert control over its remote territories. According to a local official, rebels loyal to David Yao Yao are believed to be behind Sunday's attack. Yao Yao recruited armed youths last year who opposed to a government campaign to end ethnic violence and who, according to human rights groups, have committed several human rights abuses. To date, Yao Yao has refused President Salva Kiir's offer of amnesty, and according to the UN, over 1,500 people have been killed in Jonglei since 2011. Elsewhere, Libya's Prime Minister Ali Zaidan says armed groups are now threatening democracy in the country 2 years after the ouster of Muammar Gaddafi. Earlier this month, former rebels briefly seized Zaidan during a dawn raid, only to release him hours later. Zaidan has previously called the kidnapping a coup attempt. Last week Friday, gunmen shot dead the commander of Libya's military police in the rest of eastern city of Benghazi just as he was about to attend Friday prayers, and that in turn triggered a pretty violent response from residents. The attack is the latest blow to a weak government that is struggling to assert control over militias and radical Islamists. And in a related development, Tunisia's Prime Minister Ali El-Rayes says that Islamist militants are exploiting the instability in neighbouring Libya to get training and to smuggle weapons across North Africa's porous borders. His coalition government is grappling with an Islamist militant group known as Ansar al-Sharia, one of the most radical to emerge since Tunisia's 2011 popular revolt against its former ruler, Zine al-Abidine Ben Ali. His remarks came shortly after Tunisian forces killed 10 members of Ansar al-Sharia close to the Algerian border. Tunisian authorities said gunmen had attacked 2 police patrols in the north of the country, and they had been planning assaults on security installations as well. Now, the death toll in Saturday's suicide attack in central Somalia's town of Beledweyne has gone up to 19. 3 people succumbed to shrapnel injuries sustained in that blast. Somalia's al-Qaeda-allied rebel group Al-Shabaab has in the past 1 month intensified its guerrilla-style attacks in both the troubled Horn of Africa nation and beyond its borders as well. The group claimed responsibility for the deadly Nairobi Mall siege in late September. High security alerts have also been raised in some of East Africa's countries which have contributed troops to the AMISOM force in Somalia.
16 people were killed and over 30 others injured on Saturday morning in a suicide bomber attack in a cafe in central Somali town of Beledweyne, close to the common border with Ethiopia. By Sunday morning, 3 more succumbed to shrapnel injuries from the blast.
This attack in Beledweyne is proof that Al-Shabaab is the enemy of the people. They target and kill civilians, and they use brainwashed boys in their suicide attacks.
Sources say 4 Ethiopian soldiers and an officer of the Somali army were among those killed in the attack. Those wounded were airlifted to the capital to receive treatment.
We had responded immediately. We sent a plane to bring the injured here for better treatment. Some of the injuries are fatal.
The Somali government said it will not relent on its efforts to clear Al-Shabaab from the country. This latest attack in Beledweyne comes just a month after the Nairobi Mall siege that lasted for 8 hours. It also comes barely a week after a botched suicide mission killed the 2 that were targeting a soccer match in Addis, thus raising the question, has Westgate emboldened Al-Shabaab? The Beledweyne attack targeted a restaurant popular with the military. Al-Shabaab said the target on Saturday were Ethiopian and Djibouti peacekeepers in the town. Mohammed Irmogi, CCTV, Mogadishu.
Time for a short break. Here's what's coming up in business. SADC Ministers of Transport have met and agreed to set up a new body to boost minimum standards of aviation safety in the region. Let's start, however, in Nigeria. That country's stock exchange will target over 500 companies for initial public offerings over the next 5 years, as Africa's second largest bourse seeks to reach $1 trillion market capitalization by 2016. The Nigerian Securities and Exchange Commission, the market regulator, has told Bloomberg News that 5 major companies are expected to start trading shares by the end of 2013. Now, the firms are expected to be revealed in due course, with power utilities and telecommunications companies among those lined up. The Nigerian Stock Exchange All-Share Index is up 33% so far this year, with a market capitalization of $74 billion, excluding exchange-traded funds and depository receipts as well. Now, Dubai-based private equity investor Braj has acquired a majority stake in a Ghana home loans company, the leading provider of residential mortgages in Ghana. Ghana Home Loans, which was established in 2006, has a primary focus on the Ghanaian residential home buyer, offering mortgages for first-time buyers as well as buy-to-let, equity release, refinancing and home completion products. It has also supplemented traditional mortgage lending with consumer education through housing fairs and seminars as well. The acquisition is expected to give the company a toehold in real estate and financial services in one of the fastest-growing sectors in Africa. Now, even though statistics show that air safety is still problematic across Africa as a whole, there are improvements that are taking place. International Air Transport Agency data shows a marked improvement in airline safety over the last few years. Sub-Saharan Africa, for example, has seen the greatest improvement in the world, followed by the Middle East and North Africa. But safety standards, of course, are quite different depending on which country you fly over or land in. Here's CCTV's Angelo Coppola with a story on how regional bodies are now leading the push for further improvements.
It's because of these varying standards that the ministers of transport from the 14 members of SADC got together in Zimbabwe recently and established SASO, the SADC Aviation Safety Organization. The main reason for the initiative was to pool resources to bring all members to the same higher level of air safety management.
Each state has its own safety oversight, and obviously aviation activity varies from state to state. And some of the states within the region do not meet the ICAO minimum standards and recommended practices.
SASO is likely to open its doors for regional business within the next 16 months. Its first order of business will be to assess aviation safety levels and appoint inspectors. In the meantime, a South African government agency, ATNS, or Air Traffic and Navigation Systems, has been using technology to light up the continent.
But ATNS was a key player in introducing RVSM, Reduced Vertical Separated Minima, on this continent. It went out without a hitch. Today, the South African airspace, the African airspace is RVSM, from north to south. We have identified, obviously, that there are a number of countries that could use some sort of improvement in their infrastructure. And we invested into the satellite communication system, the VSAT and NAFISAT. Those systems allowed, for the first time, neighboring countries to be able to communicate with each other.
SASO is still in concept phase, and until it's fully operational, those SADC countries with lower safety standards are unlikely to improve and be able to join the International Civil Aviation Organization. I'm Angelo Coppola for CCTV in Somerset West in the Western Cape.
Time to move on to sports now. Here's what's coming up. Hanging on, Bob Bradley hopes to be in charge of the Pharaohs in the next month's final World Cup qualifier. We'll have the details when we come back.
An ancient land, ready for change.
And I'm proud to be a woman.
How this all works.
Tradition and modernity.
We can't stop to prove that we can do it. We see them live.
Hopes and challenges. We bring you the faces of Africa.
Welcome back. The reigning African club champions Al Ahly of Egypt needed penalties to qualify for the final of the CAF Champions League. They beat Cameroon's Cotonsport 7-6 in the shootout. The second leg was being played in El Gouna, right behind closed doors, as Al Ahly do continue to pay an enormously heavy price for crowd trouble in previous matches. The hosts took the lead 3 minutes into the game thanks to an Abdullahi Al Said goal. Cotonsport, however, would equalise in the 65th minute, thereby ending the match 1-1 for 2-2 aggregate after both legs. Now, the resulting sudden death penalty shootout would see Al Ahly edge out the visitors 7-6. It, however, wasn't a convincing show from the Egyptians, who now have to face South Africa's Orlando Pirates in a two-legged final next month. Now, speculation is still quite rife over whether coach Bob Bradley will be in charge when Egypt play their second World Cup playoff at home. After a crushing 6-1 loss to Ghana, the American still hopes that he can see the job through on the 19th of next month.
When the Egyptian FA sought the services of American Bob Bradley in September 2011, his sole task was to get Egypt to the 2014 World Cup. The Pharaohs last featured at the World Cup in 1990, but after an impressive group stage qualifying run, the African football powerhouse are on the brink of elimination. A 6-1 first-leg loss to Ghana has left the country's World Cup dream in limbo and Bradley's job on the line.
These are decisions that are made by other people. It's not in my control. If it's left to me, I will be with the team, because we have been together throughout this period with a dream, and it's important that we can stand together one more time.
If the Egyptian FA ends Bradley's contract before the second leg next month, then the American will get $366,000 in compensation. It is understood Bradley may not take charge of the second leg because of fears over his safety. The game will be Egypt's first home match in the 2014 campaign. To have fans in the stadium, Ghana have written to FIFA expressing concern over security in the Egyptian capital for the match.
I can't speak to whether or not this was out of real security concerns or whether or not they were also trying to work things in the way that was in their favor. There have been many different football matches in the African Champions League that have taken place in Egypt in recent months, and all of the games have gone on without a problem, without an incident.
FIFA have given Egypt until October 28th to give security guarantees for the match. Celestine Caronay, CCTV.
And that's it for this edition of Africa Live. Do remember, you can stay in touch with Africa on the Twitter handle at CCTV News Africa. We'll also have plenty of news content on Facebook at CCTV Africa as well. See you over there. Thanks for watching. I'm Ramanya.